This video is on section 6A notes, taking control of your finances. This chapter has only one section in it, and it's kind of like an introduction chapter or section that leads us into the financial chapter, which comes after this. So this is a little bit like personal finance, if you will. So controlling your finances, they give you a few tips or tricks, I guess. They said first, know your bank balance, avoid bouncing a check or having your debit card rejected. Know what you spend. In particular, keep track of your debit and credit card spending. Don't buy on impulse. Think first, then buy only if you are sure the purchase makes sense for you, and make a budget and don't overspend it. So we're going to go over some different examples of some personal finance situations people have found themselves in. So first, Calvin isn't rich, but he gets by, and he loves sitting down for a latte at the college coffee shop. With tax and tip, he usually spends $5 on his large latte. He gets it at least once per day on average, and about every 3 days he has a second one. He figures it's not such a big indulgence, is it? Assuming Calvin's monthly rent is $1,100, how many months' rent could he pay with his annual latte expenditures? So first, we're going to calculate how many lattes he gets in a year, so we can see how the amount he's spending on those lattes in a year can compare to the months of rent. Since it says annual, that would be in a year. So we're going to say 365 lattes, that's one per day. And then since he has one latte every 3 days, then we're going to take a year and divide it by 3. So 365 days divided by 3 is the extra latte he gets every 3 days or so. So I'm just going to add those values together. 365 plus 365 divided by 3. So he gets approximately 487 lattes a year. Okay, so 487 lattes per year. Now, each of those 487 lattes costs him approximately $5. So we're going to do 487 times $5. So this is the cost of the lattes per year. So $2,435 per year. All right, and so now what we want to do is we just want to compare this amount to the $1,100 that he's spending in rent to see how many months of rent this is. And just by looking at it, you know, $2,400 is about double $1,100, so I can tell it's about 2 months rent. But I want to see exactly how much it would be in terms of the rent. So I'm going to do 2,435 divided by 1,100 per month. So it's a little bit over 2 months rent, 2.2 it is, 2.2 months rent. So if he did something to make it so he could have lattes at home or got a smaller latte maybe, he could save himself, 2 months rent if he made them at home, or maybe 1 month's rent if he reduced how often he was going. Cassidy has begun keeping her spending under better control, but she still can't fully pay off her credit card balances. She maintains an average monthly balance of about $1,100, and her card charges a 24% annual interest rate, which it bills at a rate of 2% per month. How much is she spending on credit card interest? So if she gets 2% of the interest she's billed per month, and she's carrying a balance of $1,100 on her credit card, then 2% of that is the interest she's being charged. So we'll go ahead and see how much that is. And it says annual, so I'm assuming they want to know how much she's spending on her credit card interest per year, but they didn't really say that in the question. So we're going to say 0.02, 2% interest multiplied by the $1,100 that she carries, that she owes on her card, it seems like most months. So 2% interest times $1,100. So it's about $22 per month that she's paying in interest. And so if we look at that over the course of the year, there's 12 months in a year, so we'll do 22 times 12. And so that's $264 she's paying in interest per year. All right, next they give a 4-step budget making process if that's something you would like to do. So step 1 is to determine your average monthly income. Be sure to include an average monthly amount for any income you do not receive monthly, such as once per year payments. Maybe it's leftover money from financial aid. Maybe you have a very generous family and they gave you a lot of money at Christmas time. Just any sort of whatever it is, a bonus you might get from your job, anything like that. Step 2 is to determine your average monthly expenses. Be sure to include an average amount for expenses that don't recur monthly, such as expenses for tuition, books, vacations, insurance, and holiday gifts. So there are some expenses that aren't something you pay every month, like if you have an Amazon Prime account, that can be a yearly membership. Sam's Club, you might pay that every year, things like that. Determine your net monthly cash flow by subtracting your total expenses from your total income per month, and then make adjustments as needed. So this can be good just to see if you have a budget that is within, if you're living within your means, is how people usually say it. But if you are, if what you're purchasing and how you're living is in line with how much money you're bringing in each month. So this example says, in addition to your monthly expenses, you have the following college expenses that you pay twice a year. $3,500 for your tuition each semester, $750 in student fees each semester, and $800 for textbooks each semester. How should you handle these expenses in computing your monthly budget? So they're saying that you have $3,500 in tuition, $750 in student fees, and $800 in textbooks, and this is each semester. So this is not happening once, this is happening twice. So I'm going to take all of that and I'm just going to multiply it by 2. So that's $10,100. And they're saying, how should you handle these expenses in computing your monthly budget? So what we're going to do is take this amount. It only happens twice a year. It happens each semester, but you should divide this into your monthly budget. So we're going to take $10,100 and divide it by 12 to see how much we should pay per month. $841.67. All right. Brianna is creating a budget. The expenses she pays monthly are $700 for rent, $120 for gas for her car. I'm going to write these as we do it. $120 for gas for her car, $140 for health insurance, $75 for auto insurance, $25 for renter's insurance, $110 for her cell phone, $100 for utilities, about $300 for groceries, and about $250 for entertainment, including eating out. So this is all her monthly expenses. In addition, over the entire year, she spends about $12,000 for college expenses, $1,000 on gifts for family and friends, and about $1,500 for vacations during spring and winter break, $800 on clothes, $600 in gifts to charity. Okay, so this is monthly, and then yearly is $12,000 plus $1,000, $1,500. 800, 600. Okay, so let's go ahead and add these up. We'll see what her monthly expenses are and then what her yearly expenses are. Okay, so monthly expenses are $1,820. Yearly expenses are $15,900, and we're going to take that $15,900. Sorry you couldn't see. There we go. So these were the monthly expenses that we read about in the example. These were the yearly expenses we read about in the example, and I just added them up. And so now what I'm going to do is take these yearly expenses and divide them by 12. So that's $1,325 per month. I'm going to add them to the monthly expenses. So her total and monthly expenses would be $3,145. So this is how much, her budget would need to be to include everything that she's currently spending money on. Okay, so it says now her income is $1,600. Plus a $3,000 scholarship that she receives at the beginning of the school year. So $1,600, she gets that every month. The $3,000 is once a year. So that only contributes, that's going to work for all 12 months. And so we'll say that $3,000 has to be divided amongst 12 months to count as income. So $1,600 every month, $3,000, but divided amongst the 12 months. So we'll see what her income is. Okay, so her cash flow is that she has $1,850 coming in each month, but she has $3,145 going out each month. And so that means that overall, she's overspending by $1,295. So either she's putting this much money on her credit card each month and she's building up that debt, or her parents are bailing her out, or she's borrowing money from a friend or something. But this is how much she is overspending each month. So if she's creating a budget, she's got to look back at her budget and see where she can reduce how much she's spending for things, reduce her entertainment budget, spend less money on gifts for family and friends, maybe no vacations while she's in college, less money on clothes, things like that. And maybe she needs to increase how many hours she's working so that this is closer to zero, or better yet, a positive number as opposed to a negative number. Okay, so here we have a diagram that has the percentage of spending by category and age group, and this is data from 2019. So the darkest color is those under 35, then 35 to 64, and then 64 and older. Here we have all the things that people budget for, and then these are the percentages. So this example says you've worked up a budget and find that you have $1,500 per month available for all of your personal expenses combined. According to the spending averages in the diagram above, how much should you be spending on rent? So rent would be housing. So if we look up here, they're all fairly similar. They're not, extremely different. But you're likely under 35 or maybe 35 to 64 if you are in community college. So we're going to say somewhere in here, let's see what the percentage is. So if these widths are about the same, I don't know, this is probably 35 right here, 20, 25, 30, 35, maybe 34%. I've heard that about a third of your income, which would be 33%, about a third of your income is what you should be spending on rent. So this is kind of fitting in with that data. So I see about 34% here. So we'll say 34% multiplied by the $1,500 that they have coming in each month. Means that in their particular budget, based on their income, they should look for a place where they can rent for about $510. So roommates, probably, most likely, definitely. All right. The next example says most people work full-time for at least 40 years during their careers, for example, from age 25 to 65. In 2020, the median salary for a full-time worker age 25 or older who was a college graduate with a bachelor's degree or higher was about $73,600 per year, while the average median salary for a full-time worker with a high school diploma was about $41,000 per year. Based on these data, how much more does the average college graduate earn over a 40-year career? So we want to find the difference in a college graduate versus a high school diploma per year, and then we're going to multiply that by 40 years to see how much they earn, how much more they earn over their career. So we'll find the difference first. $73,600 per year minus $41,000 per year is a difference of $32,600. This is the difference in salary per year. And we're going to take that and multiply it by 40 years. So they have that difference in salary over the course of 40 years. So over the course of 40 years, a person with a college degree would have $1,304,000 more in their salary versus somebody who had a high school diploma. All right, the next example says, across all institutions, the average cost of a 3-credit college class is approximately $1,500. Suppose that between class time, commute time, and study time, the average class requires about 10 hours per week of your time. Assuming that you could have had a job paying $15 per hour, what is the net cost of the class compared to working? Okay, so we know at least here that our classes are 16 weeks. So if it's 10 hours per week of your time, then we're going to take 10 hours per week and multiply it by 16 weeks to see how many hours we're using for each course. So 10 hours of our time, multiplied by 16 weeks is going to be 160 hours per course. So this is how much time we're taking in the course. So if we were not taking the course, if we were working a job and we were getting paid $15 per hour, then for those 160 hours we were taking the course, we could be working instead and making that $15 per hour. And during that time, we would make $2,400. Okay, this means that the cost of the course is the cost that you actually pay for the course, the $1,500, plus the amount of money that you do not make because you are not working. So you would have made this much money if you were working, but you didn't get to work, so you didn't make that money. So you paid $1,500 for the course, and then you lost wages of $2,400 because you weren't able to work because you were either in class or you were doing homework or you were commuting to class or things like that. So this course cost you approximately $3,900 for one course. And then the implication of this is now you have to compare how much time you're in school and spending on each of your courses, and then the difference in the salary you can make with a college degree. And some jobs you get into, the college degree really pays off, and some jobs, it doesn't pay off so much. So that's something to consider too. All right, next we're going to look at insurance costs. This says the overall cost of an insurance policy usually involves some combination of the following. The first is the premium. This is the amount you pay to purchase the policy. Premiums are often paid once or twice a year, although sometimes you may pay them more often. In my jobs, at least, they've always been paid monthly. We've had monthly premiums, and I don't see it. It comes directly out of my paycheck. So depending on how you're paid, you might see it differently. A deductible is the amount you are personally responsible for before the insurance company will pay anything. For example, if your auto insurance policy has a $1,000 deductible per incident, this means that you will pay the first $1,000 for any damages from a crash. A copayment usually applies to health insurance. It is the amount you pay each time you use a particular service that is covered by the insurance policy. For example, if you have a $50 copay for office visits, you will pay $50 each time you visit a doctor's office on an insured visit. All right, so here is the example problem. It says, suppose you have an accident and you end up in the emergency room, after which you receive a $7,000 bill for your treatment because you went to the emergency room and not urgent care, or you went to the emergency room and not like the doctor for a checkup. So the emergency room has really expensive bills like that. Fortunately, you have health insurance, but your policy has a $1,000 annual deductible, has a $250 copayment for emergency room visits, and pays only 80% of the remaining balance. How much will you pay out of pocket for the emergency room visit? Assume you haven't had any other medical expenses in the current year. So when they say this last line, assume you haven't had any other medical expenses in the year, they're talking about your annual deductible. So if you've been buying prescription medications out of pocket that maybe weren't covered by insurance or whatever, then that could have gone towards your deductible. And then maybe part of that $1,000 deductible had already been paid. So here they're clarifying you haven't paid anything towards your deductible, so you're going to be paying the deductible with this situation. So we're starting with a $7,000 bill. When you walked into the ER to even have them see you that day, they made you pay a copay. Before you even got seen, that's part of how copays work when you go to an office visit for a doctor, or in this case to the ER. So the very first thing you paid was that $250 copay. So we're going to subtract $250. Now there's $6,750 left to be paid, but you have currently already paid $250. All right. Now, next we have a $1,000 deductible. You're going to have to pay that because that just has to be paid before the insurance is going to start paying more for your health insurance. And so you're going to have to pay $1,000. And there's still $5,750 left in the bill to pay for, okay? At this point, the insurance is going to start to kick in, and they're going to pay 80% of the remaining balance. So if they pay 80% of it, that means that you have to pay 20% of it. So we're going to say... 80% of this is $4,600, so this is what the insurance company is going to pay. And so that means you are on the hook for $1,150 after you paid the copay, after you paid the deductible. Okay, so your emergency room visit out of pocket cost you $250 for a copay, $1,000 to reach your deductible, and then to pay 20% of the rest, you had to pay $1,150. So out of pocket, you paid $2,400 to go to the emergency room. All right. The next question says, suppose you are choosing between two health insurance policies. A low deductible policy has a premium of $250 per month and has a $1,000 annual deductible. A high deductible policy has a premium of only $150 per month, but has a $6,000 annual deductible. Assume that the two plans are otherwise identical. How would you evaluate the cost difference between the policies? So we have one where we have $250 a month for 12 months, and one where we have $150 a month for 12 months. And then we have one where we have a $1,000 deductible and one where we have a $6,000 deductible. And remember, based on the previous problem, the deductible is helpful because once you hit the deductible, it could be that you have 100% of your bills after that are covered, or 80% of the bills after that are covered, or whatever the case may be. So if we compare this, if you're paying the premium of $250 a month, then you're going to pay $3,000 in a year for sure. You have to pay that. Here, your premium is going to be $1,800. Okay, that's an amount you're definitely paying. So we can already see that this case might be better if you wanted a lower premium, clearly. But in this case, the deductible is much higher. So overall, if you end up needing, if you get in a really bad car accident and you end up needing a lot of surgery, you're definitely going to be using that $6,000 deductible, and you're going to be paying all of that deductible out of pocket before you even see if you can have 80% of the remaining balance covered, or 100%, or whatever the case may be. So if you end up needing a lot of medical care, this is probably not a good option for you, because you'll save money on your monthly premiums, but then you'll lose a lot of money based on your deductible. However, if you are someone who maybe doesn't need a lot of medical care and you're not really worried about getting in accidents, you're a pretty safe person, then maybe this really would work out for you, because you can pay a lower monthly premium and you don't think you're going to reach your deductible anyway. And so you're never really going to need more than the monthly premium. Maybe that's what you think about. So those are kind of the things that people typically think about when they're choosing between two different health insurance policies. This person over here might be somebody who knows they're going to use their health insurance a lot, and so they're going to pay more for their monthly payment because they know they're going to reach that deductible and it's going to benefit them in the long run.